The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show, Universal Basic Income. We talk about UBI quite a bit. We've talked about alternatives to UBI, including a negative income tax. We've spoken with experts like Stephanie Kelton and Pavlina Cherneva about modern monetary theory and how that relates to the economic impact of programs like UBI. And we've also talked about this Finnish program, a sort of test of universal basic income. And Finland is running, there's a lot of different UBI experiments that are going on right now. But the one in Finland, I think it's fair to say, Pat, has gotten the most attention. I don't know that it's actually the biggest, but it is the one that's gotten the most press.
I would imagine that because it's being orchestrated by an entire country, whereas the other ones are either done by like private organizations or smaller municipalities.
And the experiment is now ending. The Finnish government, which is running it, is opting not to continue financing it past this year. And the idea is that they are reflecting the views of the public in Finland, which is uncomfortable with the idea of giving completely no strings attached money to people, regardless of whether they're even looking for work. And this is one of those things that is part of American unemployment, right? In the United States, when you're on unemployment, one of the things you have to be doing in order to continue qualifying for unemployment is either be in school full-time, effectively, or more commonly, you have to be, quote, looking for work. And this basically requires that you just fill out a form online or call in and press a couple buttons once or twice a month. I'm sorry, once a week or every 2 weeks, and say, I'm looking for work. Whether you're actually looking for work or not is harder to determine, but I'm still not surprised that there are people in Finland who are sort of saying they should at least be looking for work, but that's not the point of UBI, right? Like the whole point of UBI was, we want to separate unemployment and the idea that everybody should get some basic level of income, which is arguably good for the economy. It's arguably good for public health when people don't have to be worried about whether they're going to not have enough money to even buy food for themselves or their families. The whole point of this is that it's not means tested and it's not with strings attached. So the idea that now public support has kind of waned because people aren't required to look for work, yet it's not unemployment, it's universal basic income. That's the entire point of the thing.
Well, I think people are also being upset because they're not getting the paycheck too, and this is a test, right?
It's only a test,
like only
right.
a few people are getting it, and I'm sure they auction that off at random. Certainly, I would want to be one of those people if
Why
you just
not?
get like a free 500 euros per month or whatever the number is. But I don't know if people understand that if this test goes well, could be applicable to the entire country, and that's like the goal here.
Yeah, at scale, it can't be means tested because then it's a different type of program, and it's much similar to welfare programs that already exist. The entire idea of this, the entire idea is you remove that entire bureaucracy and you just say, if we provide this sort of floor on income for everybody, what happens? And we don't know exactly what it is that would happen. There are those who are more on the supply side, economic side, who say all that will happen is the overall cost of day-to-day living will go up by more or less the amount of basic income that everybody gets, and prices will go up, and you'll sort of have the same adjusted quality of living. Demand-side economists don't believe that that's actually what would happen, and there's also a lot of intangible benefits that would take place, psychological benefits, potentially reductions in crime, which also relate to tax rates and the sort of amount of burden that's placed on law enforcement. There's a whole bunch of other things that could happen. So we need to start growing this and exploring it at scale, not shutting it down because not everybody's working. That's insane.
Do you think that your life would change that much if you received a universal basic income check every month?
You know it wouldn't. And the reason why is because I am so financially conservative personally, and I try to live short of being at the point where some additional small amount of money actually changes my day-to-day lifestyle, that it would not actually change anything for me. But that's the whole point. It doesn't actually matter, right? The whole point is you don't means test it. Yeah, any system of social insurance is going to have some so-called free riders. It's going to have some people that benefit from something that they don't really need. But the idea is, the big picture is that it should be good for the economy, and it should also fix a lot of sort of intangible problems that exist. Let's talk about monkey selfies. There is a, how is it? Is it pronounced macaque? I don't know how to pronounce that type of monkey.
I don't know my monkeys very well.
There's a monkey named Naruto, anyway, who lived on the island of Sulawesi, Indonesia. And 7 years ago, he became famous because he picked up an unattended camera and started snapping selfies, sort of looking into the camera. The pictures went viral. It was very, very interesting. What was more interesting was the sort of copyright battle that came from it. And it raised questions over, can a monkey own copyright to photograph? The monkey did not own the camera. The monkey did take the picture himself. And the monkey is also the only sort of living entity, I guess we would say. It's not a person, but it's a living entity pictured in the photograph. So does the monkey hold copyright to those pictures? PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, believe that the answer is yes. And they represented Naruto the monkey in court because the monkey actually has formal training in pediatrics, not in the law, so he was not able to represent himself. And the court has determined that monkeys can't own copyright. They also can't bring copyright infringement suits, and that not a surprising outcome. And this also relates to, what does it relate to, Pat? Related to gay marriage.
Slippery slope.
Exactly right. People who say we shouldn't allow two men to marry each other because next thing you know, a man will be able to marry a horse. And the answer to that is, of course, horses have no way to engage in contracts. Horses can't sign contracts the same way that monkeys can't hold copyright. And PETA doesn't like this, but I think it probably is the right decision.
It's the right decision, and I think it's because, like, it's okay to extend some human rights to animals, and I think we can agree on some of them. Like, you know, maybe, like, even beyond the Lockean definition of rights, like, they should be allowed to, you know, be able to free range and, you know.
If they want. Not all animals want to be free-roaming animals. Some like to be confined in some kind of homey atmosphere.
They have a right not to be tortured, all of these things. But they don't need a right to free speech. They don't need a right to free expression, and they don't need copyright abilities either. So I think that would just be a weird thing more than anything else.
Yeah, so you're actually okay with cats not being allowed to, for example, register patents if they invent something notable or something. You'd be okay with that.
I don't think that's too necessary. I mean, like, what happens to the picture, though? Like, who gets the copyright? Is it no one? Is it the person that set up the camera? Because I think if there is an argument to be made, it's the person who, like, set up the camera in the area that would allow the monkey to take the photo.
What about the possibility of it being public Creative Commons licensed or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, especially because this is like something that's never happened before too.
Yeah.
So I do feel like I'm in part an owner of this. It's like a piece of art, you know?
Do you think that this is actually a big deal though?
No.
Okay, yeah, I don't either. But it is interesting that the court agreed, because if they had said the monkey does own copyright, hold copyright, it would be weird.
Yeah, and like, why would PETA get to benefit?
That's true,
I know they would donate a lot of the money to like charitable organizations and help out the monkeys.
Yes.
But like, why do they get to be the beneficiary? I don't know.
Monkeys require legal representation now. That's a big thing, and I'm glad PETA has taken up the cause. Briefly, let's talk about Elizabeth Warren. Some of you may know that there is this sort of pejorative I don't know if it's a pejorative idea, but there's been this very negatively associated discussion of Elizabeth Warren being part Native American, part Cherokee, I believe it is, and it dates
like
back 132nd Cherokee, and it dates back to signing up filling out her forms for Harvard admission as Native American.
I don't even think it was part of an application. I think it was just as part of the directory there.
Oh, okay, so even less concerning,
it wasn't even that nefarious.
Not that it would be concerning anyway. People like Donald Trump have jokingly referred to her as Pocahontas, and the idea is, oh, she was potentially or actually the beneficiary of all sorts of affirmative action rights conferred to her because of her Native American status, even though she was very well off and really a white woman for all intents and purposes, blah, blah, blah. So now there's an independent candidate for Senate here in Massachusetts named Shiva Ayadurai, or Ayadurai, I'm not exactly sure on the pronunciation, who is challenging the Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren for her seat in the Senate. And she is running on the idea that she is a, quote, real Indian versus Elizabeth Warren being a fake Indian. And she's asking voters to, quote, defeat hashtag fake Indian Elizabeth Warren. Yeah. Isn't this the sort of identity politics that these people claim to be against in principle?
That's part of it too. And to be clear, she's an Indian from India too, not Indian as a Native American.
That's
right?
the other
Yeah.
confusion, which is that there are people who have referred to Elizabeth Warren as being a fake Indian, with Indian being arguably not an acceptable term for Native Americans, although I think that that's actually changing, because I was under the impression that you're supposed to always say Native American. And now I'm actually seeing some so-called Native Americans refer to themselves as Indian. So maybe it is actually acceptable now. I don't know.
Yeah, when I went on my famous road trip across the United States, I met some American Indians in South Dakota, and that's how they referred to themselves.
And I think in downtown Manhattan, near the previous studio of the David Pakman Show, there's a museum right when you come out of the Bowling Green 4-5 subway stop, that is called the Museum of the American Indian, I believe it is. Or something. It's not called the Native American Museum. But.
Yeah, I think this just means that Elizabeth Warren is going to be safe in her seat.
You're right. You see this as boding well for her.
Yeah, like we like her here in Massachusetts. It looks like there's a blue wave coming, so Democrats should be okay for the congressional and senatorial elections. And like the best people that they could throw at her are people like Kurt Schilling potentially.
He could win.
Person. I don't know. I think she's pretty safe.
No, I don't think Schilling would win, but I actually would be worried that he would get a shockingly high percentage of the vote simply because he was a great Red Sox pitcher, and Massachusetts people just love their sports. And he could get what I would call a disturbingly high number of votes, even though definitely not enough to win. But is he actually running, or it was
No, I think he announced that he's not going
to
run.
Okay.
Yeah. There were so many interviews that he did that just went catastrophically, like the one with Jake Tapper, where halfway through the interview, Schilling started interviewing Tapper
about whether he's
being Jewish, and it was very bizarre.
It was very, very strange. Yeah, that was. Would you say that that's the moment where Schilling jumped the shark when he questioned the interviewer about his Judaism?
Oh, I think so. I mean, if he just left it as like a Red Sox hero, he would be fine. Like he would go down in the history books as a good person.
Sure,
but
maybe.
Then he started talking about like trans people, floating an idea of running for office. Like we don't want you anymore.
Confusion about what it means to be Jewish, and all sorts of very strange things. So anyway, good news, I would say, that Kurt Schilling isn't running, and we'll see if we ever hear from him again. That's it for the bonus show. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.